The astrological natal chart of Donald J. Trump is one of the more unusual and interesting ones that you will see, and in this video we're going to take a look at why that is. This is the second iteration of this video. The previous one was a little bit too long and I had missed a few key points, so I decided to remake and re-upload this video. For those of you who already saw the first version, you're going to hear me repeat myself quite a few times, so I apologize in advance. There are a few things that make Donald Trump's chart quite fascinating, so let's start as always from the basics. First off, we have the ascendant here. It represents the person's birth and it reveals the individual's material and physical conditions, the material reality that they exist in, as well as their outward identity, their personality, the things that they identify with vis-a-vis the world. What makes this ascendant quite interesting is the fact that it's found on 29 degrees and 58 minutes of Leo. That means that it's just 2 minutes away from having moved into Virgo. It is as close to a true cusp placement as you can possibly get. We call 29 degrees and 0 degrees of any signs critical degrees, and these degrees indicate a certain amount of instability. And in our case, this ascendant is done with the sign of Leo. It's about to move out, but it hasn't entered into the sign of Virgo yet. It is in this limbo twilight position where it is still technically in Leo, but all it sees in front of itself is Virgo. And this is not just confusing for astrologers to figure out which energy is prevalent, but it's also going to be confusing for the individual themselves. In this case, Donald Trump probably feels a bit unstable between expressing the Leo side of their personality and the Virgo side of their personality. And that's because two signs that are right next to each other are typically very different in nature, and that can cause some friction between the two expressions. Now you might be thinking, what the heck are you talking about, Alex? Donald Trump is so clearly a Leo ascendant. I mean, just look at all of the golden buildings, all of the self-centeredness, all of the praise seeking, all of that just screams Leo. Where is even the Virgo in Donald Trump? Trump says he's scared of germs and needs to drink from a straw to avoid contamination. Here's a video of Donald Trump having the constant need to rearrange objects on his desk, sometimes to very particular angles and locations, something that is a bit of an OCD type behavior and is typically associated with the detail-oriented nature of Virgo. Now, besides Mars, which we're going to get to in a minute, Trump's ascendant also conjuncts the fixed star of Regulus. And this is a fixed star which is associated with leadership, aristocracy, and royalty. Meaningful conjunctions to Regulus are not uncommon in the charts of political personalities. The fact that we have Mars here just adds a bit more of that masculine fire to this whole combination. We know that Mars is the god of war. It is the planet of action and aggression. And we know that Donald Trump can be an aggressive and direct individual. The way he deals with the media comes to mind, the way he yanks on people's arms when he goes to shake their hands, the aggressive style of business and negotiation, and many other things. With this placement, I find it very interesting that he presents himself as the president of peace, as the one who's going to make peace and who never started a war. And while it is true that the United States did not get involved in any new wars during his first term, that had more to do with the geopolitical realities at the time than with him being president. However, any military action that he did take during his first term was kind of characterized by overkill, such as dropping the world's largest conventional bomb on Afghanistan or firing a volley of 70-80 some into Syria. Actions which were a show of force and of willingness to escalate more than anything else. In fact, with all the talk of peace, Donald Trump does start his second term on a war footing, and by threatening a bunch of other countries, including close allies and friends. Now, make no mistake, with this Mars conjunct the ascendant, Donald Trump is very much about domination, intimidation, and aggression. I suspect he would very much enjoy to be a president in times of war and be credited with dropping all types of explosives in other people's backyards. When it comes to the art of the deal, it is Venus here that represents harmony, balance, reciprocity, and exchange. And in Donald Trump's chart, Venus is conjunct Saturn, a planet of restriction and limitation. That shows me that Donald Trump may be a bit insecure about reciprocity and fair exchange. He may believe that he has to extract everything that he wants by force if necessary, while he may have a not so favorable view of balanced exchanges and of building genuine relationships. On this point, it's very interesting to note how contrasting the charts of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin actually are. There are a few things astrologically which indicate that they are very different types of individuals fundamentally. If you want me to make a video exploring Vladimir Putin's chart or even a synastry analysis between Trump and Putin, let me know in the comments. Now let's move on to something which is deeply fascinating about Donald Trump's chart. There are so many fascinating nuances about the placements that we're about to discuss. I'm going to try to cover the main points and the essence of it here, but this would make for a lengthy discussion on its own. If we look at the sun here, we find it on 22 degrees of Gemini, exactly opposite the moon on 21 degrees, an opposition within less than 1 degree. That means that Donald Trump was born at the peak of a full moon. But if we look closer, it gets really interesting, because here's the north node on 20 degrees of Gemini conjunct the sun, which means that the south node is here conjunct the moon, which means that this full moon is actually a total lunar eclipse happening exactly as Donald Trump is being born. Donald Trump was born during an eclipse. Now, the lunar nodes, the points where the eclipses take place, always make for unusual traits and characteristics and life themes when in conjunction to important elements in the chart. And as you can imagine, being born at the peak of a total eclipse just amplifies that analysis. Now, the South Node supposedly shows us where our past karmic patterns stem from, supposedly what we've experienced during our past lives and the karmic baggage that we carry into this one. For Donald Trump, that is the fourth astrological house, which does have to do with home, family, but also things like fixed property, real estate. In the early years of our life, we deeply identify with the matters of the South Node. In Donald Trump's case, real estate was very much a part of the family legacy. However, our karmic process always pulls us away from that. It pushes us to outgrow those past karmic patterns and to grow into something else, some new paradigm, which is represented by the North Node. It does that by making these matters familiar, but also dissatisfying. Donald Trump is very familiar with the business of real estate, with construction, with things of that nature, but also I suspect that these are things which did not offer him a great deal of satisfaction. Whether successful or not, those areas of life do not manage to fulfill us because they stem from our past. We've already had those lessons and experiences, and we are hungry for something else. In Donald Trump's case, this North Node is in the 10th house and conjunct the Sun. Both of these having to do with authority, centrality, and a chief executive position. Donald Trump deeply desires to be in command, to have authority as per the Sun, and to be seen as the decision maker as per the 10th house. These are his true karmic desires. These are the only things that will fulfill and satisfy him during his lifetime, other than perhaps Mars here, which is Donald Trump's soul planet, indicating his spiritual mission in his current lifetime. And I'll let you speculate about what that may mean. But in any case, while the matters of the North Node are deeply alluring and fascinating to us, we want to have those experiences, we want to become the things that are indicated by the North Node, we're never really quite there. See, during our lifetime, our whole karmic process is about moving away from the South Node and towards the North Node. And while Donald Trump did obtain the top executive position in the world, which goes to show the kind of success that the North Node can grant, at the same time, we can clearly see how he is still playing by the ear. He does not fully embody the role that he currently has. All of our life is a process of learning in the areas of the North Node. We don't really ever master it in this lifetime. Now, just a little plug here. If you want to know how this plays out specifically in your chart, what is your karmic process and desire, as well as your spiritual mission in life, check out Your Path and Purpose, link in the description. We're not only stumbling around and playing by the ear with the regards of the matters of the North Node, but we are also forced to innovate. We are forced to do things in a different way, which a lot of the times comes across as unconventional or even weird. And I think we can all agree that there is no more unconventional president in the history of the United States than Donald Trump. The only way that he could have ever gotten to that position was by doing something differently, by being unconventional. If you think about it, he would never have become the president of the United States had he taken the conventional traditional route. And that is something that applies to all of us with regards to our North Node and our karmic desires. And there's something very peculiar about Donald Trump's ability to obscure and eclipse everything, right? He was born during an eclipse, and he does have that effect. If you think about it, Donald Trump's first term came right after that of Barack Obama, the first black president in American history. And Barack Obama was not a bland or boring president. His term was not uneventful. Donald Trump comes right after and manages to eclipse everything about him, for better or worse. Whether you like him or not, there is something very fascinating, very powerful, and unique about Donald Trump. Just keep in mind that things that are touched by the North Node are never as they appear, whether intentionally or not. They can tend to be deceptive and misleading, and they're always subject to transformation. The North Node is an element of transformation. Things around these individuals can tend to shift and morph and change unexpectedly. And just like we know that eclipses can be times of shifting paradigms and transformation, someone with this kind of a combination is someone who represents just that. This is someone whose very existence has to do with shaking things up, transforming realities, and changing narratives forever. Looking back from the future, we might distinguish between two main periods in USA history: the era before and after Donald J. Trump.